Now, the federal court today dismissed an attempt by the UAP, the United Australia Party, to force the Australian Electoral Commission to allow crosses to be counted as votes for no at the upcoming Voice referendum. So ticks will be accepted as yes votes. What do you think about this decision here?
I think this is just goes to show that Clive Palmer and his mate in the Senate just need to maybe focus on some actual policy, working on some policy that impacts Australians moving forward. And they all need Clive especially needs hobbies outside of, taking people to court. I think it was an absolute waste of time. And, let's just get on with it. If you're not clear now that you have to write yes or no, then I'm sorry, that's on you. So sort your stuff out, Australia, and we're better than this.
Do you know it's a shock, but there are still people who don't know there's a referendum on. I mean,
Yes.
people who don't read the news, who don't watch Sky, might not even know there's a referendum. I mean, we'll have to see what the voting turnout ends up being.
I think the AEC, it's definitely upon them now, or the campaigns, to make sure that they are really pushing the really simple, clear messages on how to vote through social media, because I feel a lot of people, I know just my algorithm is starting to see, snippets of the yes and no campaigns filter through. So I think it's definitely on the AEC now to make sure that social media is first and foremost where the majority of that information goes moving forward.
Now, Victoria, the first Australian state now to implement a tax on short-term renters. It's being dubbed an Airbnb tax. So visitors to properties on platforms like Airbnb or Stayz will be slugged with a 7.5% levy from 2025. This is the highest of its kind in the world, probably not a shock. Victoria sets a lot of world records, including for the number of days in lockdown. But Premier Daniel Andrews defended this move when he was grilled on it today. Have a look.
How can you say it's a modest charge when it's the highest short stay tax in the world? Other jurisdictions,
well, it's a modest charge.
To put it at 2, 3, 5%.
No, well,
this is the highest in the world.
Well, $7.50 per $100 is a modest charge.
It's not modest.
It's a modest charge, and I'll say it 100 times if you want. We may not agree on that, but it's a modest charge.
Jenna, maybe if he says it's a modest charge enough times, everyone will believe the highest rate in the world is a modest charge.
It's like Beetlejuice, a policy on the run. And the fact that it just goes to show how out of touch these premiers are. $7.50 is actually quite a lot of money. It won't even get you a pack of soap at the supermarket.
Well, isn't it 7.5%? Isn't it?
Yeah,
7.5%. So that'd be a lot more.
Out of $100. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's I think this is ridiculous. Now, look, I think the fact that obviously Airbnb and Stayz and all of the the short stay accommodation groups have come out and thought of this, we would expect that. But also interestingly, the fact that it threw in $3.7 billion into the Victorian economy, which is basically on life support at this point in time, really makes you wonder. And even the response from some of the opposition in Victoria, the Greens are saying it does nothing to help the immediacy of the housing crisis. Well, we know that because you can't build houses overnight. But I think that this is just, I have to agree with some of the commentators that say this is just policy on the run. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this has an impact over the peak, periods of summer when this comes into effect just before the Australian Open.
Yeah. Now, look, let's turn to the heat wave. A total fire ban in place across New South Wales. The state sweltered through another day of hot temperatures. I think it was the 5th day of a record for this month for September. There's 21 schools closed, national parks also closed. A cool change is on the way, but then Queensland is set to bear the brunt of the unseasonably hot weather over the next few days. The Bureau of Meteorology declaring an El Nino weather event. Jenna, so what does this mean for this summer and how hot and dry it will be?
Oh, it's going to be, you just speak to a lot of farmers, Sharri, and even for people that live in semi-rural areas around the country, and they're just saying, look, winter was moderately wet, so it's going to be a horrifically dry summer. And I think, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think if we don't see a number of horrific bushfires this summer, it's going to be a shock, because I think that it's going to be absolutely catastrophic. And it just goes to show the importance of, if you can volunteer with, emergency services around in your community, please do it, because I think we're definitely going to need it in summer.
All right, Jenna Clarke, thank you so much for joining me with that news update.